Throughout the Cold War, the United States fielded a fleet of submarines that became the very definition of a superpower. Those submarines and their power source were unimaginable just years before. Yet by the 1960s, Mare Island Naval Shipyard was the only shipyard on our nation's west coast engaged in the construction of the fleet of 67 nuclear submarines required to protect our national interest. In fact, as our nation mobilized to address the existential threat posed by the Soviet Union, more of those submarines were built at Mare Island than all but one other shipyard in the nation. This is the story of three key people who drove the technology and caused a total of 25% of those submarines to be constructed at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. 100 years ago, Albert Einstein, a German-born theoretical physicist, developed the theory of relativity. One of the most surprising, counterintuitive, and well-known consequences of the theory was the famous equation E equals mc squared. Put simply, a small amount of material had the potential to release an incredible amount of energy. Then, as the planet descended into World War II, Einstein grew increasingly alarmed at German research into developing a weapon of unimaginable power based on his theory. That concern led him to write urging President Roosevelt to fund similar research to prevent the Germans from obtaining exclusive possession of the postulated weapon. Einstein's notoriety led the president to authorize the research. That research grew into one of the largest and most secret programs of World War II, and it became known as the Manhattan Project. World War II ended when the atomic bombs developed by the project passed through Mare Island on their way to be dropped on Japan. The theoretical postulate that the tremendous energy of the atom could be released in the form of a massively destructive weapon had been proven. But could it be controlled and harnessed for more benign uses? The answer to the question rested with a diminutive Navy captain who, according to Vice Admiral Earl Mills, Chief of the Bureau of Ships, was not too easy to get along with and not too popular. However, in Mills' judgment, Hyman Rickover was the man whom the Navy could depend on no matter what opposition he might encounter. Mills' assessment of Rickover was prophetic, and Rickover's assignment would prove to be one of the most important assignments in U.S. Navy history. In just a few short years, Rickover developed teams that designed, built, and commissioned the first true submersible in world history. The USS Nautilus was powered by a newly designed nuclear reactor capable of powering the ship while submerged for years at a time. The vessel created its own air, and it was limited only by the food it could carry and the endurance of the crew. Rickover controlled every aspect of the ship's design, construction, and the crew's training. Nothing was left to chance, and the results were unprecedented. The submarine represented a quantum leap forward in naval warfare and was celebrated worldwide. The submarine was so reliable and such a strategic game changer that the decision was soon made to field a fleet of nuclear submarines to face down the Soviet Union as the Cold War continued to escalate. The program to build those submarines was of the highest national urgency, and ramping up to build them was a major challenge. As with every other aspect of the program, Rickover was in complete control. That control included the designation of what shipyards were to construct those submarines. Before shipyards were to be trusted with this complex task, Rickover insisted on visiting them and obtaining the personal assurances of key personnel that they were up to the task to meet the demanding schedules and quality required for these new vessels. At Mare Island, that man was Irv Whithorn, master of Mare Island's largest shop, the Pipe Shop. Rickover had been told that when Mr. Whithorn wanted something done, it got done. When Rickover arrived at Mare Island, he did not even make a courtesy visit with the shipyard commander before heading over to Mr. Whithorn's office in the pipe shop. There is no record of the meeting, but it was reputed to be a very loud meeting, and whatever transpired, when Rickover left, Mare Island was designated as a key building yard for the new nuclear submarine fleet. Mare Island would go on to build 25% of the fleet. At times, 4 submarines were under construction on the building ways outside the museum. Mare Island would eventually build more of these new submarines than all other shipyards in the nation, except Electric Boat, where the first submarine was built. The office where that historic meeting took place remains in use as a conference room for the board of directors that runs the Mare Island Museum. Stop in the Mare Island Museum to learn more about the Cold War and experience the mock-up of the control room of one of those submarines that is built with actual components from the submarines.